Chief, thank you for coming out and giving me the opportunity to inquire more about some of the things that are happening in the police department. It seems like since the last time that we had a chance to chat, the whole world has changed.
That's correct.
And so, I think along with that, what's going on with the pandemic, and you couple that with what's happening at the federal level, it's just a lot of anxiety, I think, that exists out there with Black Lives Matter movement and the various protests that have happened. But along those lines, I know that there were a couple of incidents that occurred in University City over the course of about a 2-week period. One certainly involved a group of teenagers that ended up with a shooting, and a second one involved, I think, actually teens again, or very young adults, where the individual barricaded himself in a home. So what can you share with us about those incidents?
Well, I'll start with the incident that occurred on September the 30th. There was a 7500 block of Carlton incident, whereas the department got notified of some shots being fired. We investigate the calls, and we learned to find out that pretty much an isolated incident of the 7500 block, a house was targeted where some teens resided with the grandmother. Mm-hmm. And being with the grandmother, they had some disputes and some disagreements with some associates that they had, and it led to a fight, Facebook fight, social media fight, and then on top of that, a shots fired or shooting into dwelling and at a dwelling. So with that being said, through our investigation, a very thorough investigation, we were able to get 2 teens arrested, officially charged. One was 17 years of age, one was 18 years of age. None of those suspects or perpetrators resided in University City. Their targets were the house on the 7500 block of Carlton. With that being said, the residents have since moved from that property, or is still moving, and literally the teens have been out of the household for probably about 3 weeks as we speak, 2 to 3 weeks, which has been confirmed by the UCPD investigators. So, and the grandmother is moving by the end of this month.
That's wonderful news.
Right.
Did you have something else?
No, I was just going to say that's the first incident. That's the Carlton incident. Mm-hmm. And then the most recent incident on October the 6th was a incident that started in Florissant, Missouri. In Florissant, Missouri, I guess some robberies had been occurring. Apparently, one of the perpetrators, one of the suspects, was a resident of University City, a teen as well. I think he's early 19, maybe 20 years of age. But on October the 6th, specifically, in the evening time, a robbery was perpetrated in Florissant, which led to several agencies in a vehicle pursuit of the suspect, who then decided to come to his residence in University City. His residence was in the 7000 block of Julian. Once he gets into the residence, he and another perpetrator of his decide to hide and barricade themselves inside the home. We were able to get other siblings out of the household without any issue, negotiated that to get them out, and by that time St. Louis County tactical team, as well as Florissant and several other agencies, responded to make sure that they helped contain the scene. Mm-hmm. We set up a perimeter, and of course, because these perpetrators had utilized weapons in their robberies earlier in that day, several of the agencies took this as a very serious threat. So just for precautions in the immediate vicinity, we did have some neighbors excavated or move out of the home to where we can ensure their safety. Mm-hmm. But no one was in harm's way. And when I say that, besides the law enforcement officers or even the perpetrators within the household. Now, through several negotiations, we tried to get them out of the household, surrendering to the authorities. Right. They chose not to. They chose not to communicate. And then at which time, later on in the early morning hours, the St. Louis County tactical team breached the home with no injuries, and we were able to take people into custody, take 2 into custody. one being a 16-year-old and the other being the resident that lived there, one of the residents that lived there, the 19 or 20-year-old subject I'm speaking of. And they have been, warrants have been issued in all of those cases that they had, that dealt with that night. For Florissant, that was another jurisdiction's adjudication process that had to take place and the due process on that. So we were simply a support agency in that realm, and we gave as much support as we could.
Well, I appreciate it. I know that as a government, and particularly as a police department, that the information that you distribute to the public has to be complete and accurate. And,
Right.
you know, that often just takes time because we don't want to expose the organization and the community to unnecessary litigation.
Yes, sir.
And so, yeah, we always want to make sure that that it's good information that we're putting out there.
Exactly.
So one of the issues, I know that those incidents are really anomalies, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the, you know, if University City is a safe community. All of the statistics that I've seen tells me that the crime is trending downward. But could you touch on that a little bit? What are you seeing?
I definitely can. I'm definitely seeing a downward trend of the crime, the high-profile crime here in University City. And when I speak on that, University City is a very safe community. We are a very eclectic, centrally located community, approximately 35,000 people. And with the data that supports the answers of that, the Part 1 crimes have been going down since 2017. At the end of 2016 to 2017.
And Part 1 crimes would be the most severe crimes.
That's
such
correct.
as homicides and so
That's
forth.
correct. Murder, non-negligent homicide, rape, robbery, aggravated assault, burglaries, motor vehicle thefts, larcenies, theft, and arsons.
Okay.
Those are the most serious crimes that the federal governments, the federal agencies would like us to report at that time. That will be changing and come January 1st to where we report 8 categories to a total of 23, 24. But the situation is right now we're reporting what they're asking, and that's what's being tallied. From 2016 to 2017, there was a 14% decrease in crime. From 2017 to 2018, there was an 11% decrease in crime, still steady going downwards. Now, from 2018 to 2019, there was a 1% decrease in crime. And thus far, from 2019 through the 3 quarters of 2020, there's a notable decrease in crime, steady going down. So literally for right now, there's a total of 746 Part 1 crimes that have been tallied up through October 1st on a much slower pace than 2019. University City Police Department, we operate on the module of the 21st Century Task Force. We go by those 6 pillars. We install all those 6 pillars within our standards, within our general order policies, and we take those pillars and we break them down for the implementation, the strategic planning portion, and then the implementation, making sure that these are viable pillars that we can meet and viable standards that we can meet. Now, to ensure that we're a safe community, I'll take pillar 3, technology and social media. That play a vital role in UCPD's reduction of crime. The technology has allowed us to further get tools to protect the community, to protect the officers, to protect the citizens, the patrons, and the tourists that come within our community. UCPD is very active with this technology, whether that includes drones, cameras, communication skills, gun detection, robots. All of such have been invested in this community to keep this community safe. Pillar 4, another pillar, community policing, combines a focus on intervention and prevention through problem solving by formulating collaborative partnerships with schools, social services, and other stakeholders. Not only do we collaborate with like-sized agencies of law enforcement statute, but school districts, what have you, especially our own school district, University City. The partnerships of the stakeholders of our community, whether that's the clergy, whether that's just social organizations within our community. We make sure that we reach out and we set up some type of program, some type of engagement that's ongoing with them. Just as recently, I participated in a Beyond the Badge event up at the U City High School with all teens for only University City. Mainly teen males, and they're with their coaches, I believe, from the various sports teams that they played. And it was a matter of discussing items and questions that they had. And that also included the careless use and reckless use of weapons. We wanted to explain to them why that was dangerous for ages 16, 17, 18, 19, or what have you. And I did that along with some millennial age police officers, some officers that are clearly able to reach them because they were not too far from being in high schools themselves.
Right.
Those are some of the main reasons I would point out that why University City is safe.
I know that we started to get a number of shots fired calls I would say that is all over University City, so not one particular ward, but more shots fired calls are coming certainly from the third ward than
Right.
others. Two things. One is that I know that you are looking at the expansion of our shots fired, kind of a system that identifies or pinpoints exactly where the shots are coming from. And I guess secondly, what else is being done, or what can residents do if they hear shots fired?
Right. Well, we start off with the fact that University City has about 35,000 residents. We also have about 22,000 living situations, living quarters. With that, we're a very small but overtly assertive and resourceful police department, very community engagement police department. So trying to predict where those shots are being fired is very hard without trending data and trending information and leads and tips. But I can tell you, with all the correct strategic planning and implementation, success is never guaranteed. Mm-hmm. But one thing about that success that's never guaranteed, more importantly, failure is never final. So if we don't get something right and it's not a matter of life and death, then we want to make sure we get whatever implementation and whatever strategic plans together to correct that. We are aware of complaints arising from loud noises, whether that be gunshots, fireworks, transformers, train tracks, all of such backfiring. And we are working with surrounding communities, whether that's Overland, Veneta Park, which is North County Co-op, and it's also Wellston, or Pagedale. These are all communities that we're working with to quell the noises that are being reported, whether that's gunshot noises or whatever else that may be. We have been providing extra patrols, saturating our community with marked patrol cars as well as unmarked patrol cars, K-9 units working midnights, we have a vast of different approaches that we're doing, and that includes technology, gunshot detection devices that are already in place, but it's in place to possibly needing expanding, and that means more investing in the technology to make sure that these detections are being pinpointed are helpful being pinpointed to point us in the right direction to get this situation solved. To start, UCPD, we classify a lot of our loud noise complaints as a high priority call. Everything is a high priority. We don't take anything for granted. If you say that you heard something, we're going to take it for what it's worth, and we're going to investigate it. And that means from the first line officer to the first line supervisor to the investigators that follow up the next morning or the next day or that same day. Loud noise complaints and shots fired calls can be challenging, though, because for the calls for service, the officers attempt to determine the location of these sounds and these noises. However, gunshots and other noises can travel a long distance depending on the geography and the layout of the land, meaning that a lot of these sounds can reverberate off of the houses, echo off of the houses. So especially in the middle of the night in the crisp air, any noise, whether that's an M4 or firework item, or whether that's a handgun or if that's a rifle, with rifles being heard as far as 2 miles, handgun being heard as far as 1 mile by way of regurgitating and reverbing off of the homes. I'm sorry. It is difficult to pinpoint an exact location, especially if the perpetrator is utilizing cover from their own backyard. Sometimes we have some careless gun owners out here. We have some. Missouri is one of the most lax states in laws, gun laws there is. So meaning that I do not have to be 21 years old to possess a weapon. I only have to be 21 to purchase that weapon. So which is a very lax and loophole-ish type of item. And we would hope that the parents and the guardians and the support structure for anyone that's younger than the age of 21 would be in place to give that guidance and that restriction. If a perpetrator is utilizing that cover, like I said, from the backyard or shooting in the air and moving, or even from a moving vehicle, it makes it even more difficult to pinpoint that discharging item, discharging weapon. And I can say UCPD does. We do not regulate the sale of the fireworks. We do not regulate the sale of the weapons in the state of Missouri. If it was up to me, I would like a little bit more tighter control of that, you know, because it does alarm the community, and getting the community to work together. Sometimes we need the legislation to fall in line with that.
Some more stricter gun laws would be helpful in trying to combat that type of activity.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
I know that we are doing the pilot on the shot detection system, so I'm looking forward to getting more information on that and potentially recommending the expansion of that. I do appreciate the fact that often it's difficult to identify exactly where shots are coming from, and more often than not, they're coming from areas in surrounding communities, not necessarily our community. But I do want to commend you and the police department in your efforts, the gains that you're making for community policing, as well as a real focus on technology with the drones and the shot detection system. And I know that we're going to be exploring robotics in the future. And so I think one of the challenges that you're faced with is increasingly fewer and fewer people are seeing, you know, policing as a viable profession. So with that, we really need to begin to focus more on how do we more effectively use technology. And I appreciate the lead that you're taking in those efforts. So thank you for coming out and giving us an opportunity to update the community. And you know, as you know, I tend to like to do these not necessarily quarterly, but probably a couple of times a year.
Yes, sir.
So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you for being with me today.